Hey everyone, welcome to Angie and Christie Right Now. I'm Christie Berman.
And I'm Angie Sandro.
And today we have a wonderful guest with us. You're never going to believe this. We were so happy when he told us that he was going to come on and be willing to share his story with us. He's a dark fantasy and horror author of short and long fiction who lives in Westtown, New York. He's a husband and a father, and he considers himself a semi-decent cook, something which we can definitely talk about on this show because food. He first published his short fiction in the 1990s, and that was followed by his first novel, The King of Ice Cream, in 2004, which is a title that we absolutely need to discuss. And his most recent novel, The Game of Five, was just released this Halloween. And I find anyways that it's a very appropriate date to release for his genre. Please welcome to our podcast, Robert Wayne McCoy.
Hi.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, ladies, for having me.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add to the bio?
Only one thing. I actually live in Port Jervis, New York, so I apologize if maybe I gave the wrong information. I don't know. But nope. I found that writing is, I'm not going to say the most important thing to me, but my family is the most thing. But writing has been an outlet that it drives me regardless of any financial needs. It's to tell the story is what's important to me. And I guess I'd like to start off there. The business is hard and everyone wants to be successful. And I think you have to find success in yourself before anything else can happen. And I feel very fortunate that Matt Sinclair of Elephant's Bookshelf Press was willing to take a chance with me a couple times, short stories and the novel. There's a lot to talk about there. And on the outside of things, I've been an avid role player for many years, Dungeons and Dragons. Back in 1977, I started with a friend of mine, and I've continued playing with my children now at this point. They put up with me still and play. And my other passion is it's Aikido. It's Nihon Goshin Aikido, and it's the other branch that no one talks about. Have you ladies heard of Steven Seagal? I assume.
Of course.
Okay. There's really another Aikido that is outside of Steven's Aikido. He's called it's a Hambu Aikido. Nihon Goshin was created by another student at the same time of the founder, and this is the style that I study. And it's actually right in Port Jervis. So that's and the headquarters is in Middletown, New York, 20 minutes away. So that's sort of me. So whatever.
So how long have you been doing Aikido?
I studied the other style many years ago with a good friend of mine. And when I moved to New York, when I met my wife, I moved to be with her. A few years after that, I found this style. And they're similar, but not similar at all. I don't know if that makes any sense. Their viewpoints, their attitudes, some of the maneuvers, their joint locks, their throws, they're standard, but the reasonings behind both Aikidos are varied. So in this case, I had picked up this style, which was different from my own, and really loved it. And I'm getting close to my brown belt. So it's the proverbial bucket list. I'd like to be a black belt before I kick the bucket, literally. But I'm hoping in another couple of years I'll earn that, and before I'm too old to get thrown around. But to answer your question, probably about 5 years on and off now. I had to stop for a little while, but I've picked it up again in the past 2 years.
Nice, very nice. So on that train of thought, how and when did you know that you were going to, or that you needed maybe to be a writer?
It's a funny thing. I think if you asked my parents, they would never have guessed that I would have this book in my hand, written by me, of course. It's a quick backstory. When I was in the 4th grade, I was diagnosed with a learning disability, and I had the reading level of a 1st grade. And basically what we found out was, and they may have a name for it now, I don't know, but I think I've adapted to it, but a mind-eye link problem where my long-term memory would fragment. So I would forget rules, whether it was mathematics, language. As it went on, my mind sort of unraveled, and I was just back where I started. So Spanish 1 to Spanish 2, I would forget things in Spanish 1. And so there was a lot of difficulty there. So writing was obviously a part of that. for years I had trouble with it's and there and there, all of the subtle rules, or not so subtle, I would forget them. I learned memory techniques to compensate for the issue. And in college, I actually studied theater, and I thought I wanted to be on stage. I enjoyed being on stage. And no, kids, I would not recommend getting a theater degree. It doesn't really help you, but unless you know, I should say that I should never dissuade from the arts, but it's a tough road. And after and pretty much during theater and at the end, I was like, I really want to have control of everything. I want to create the work. I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I started writing. And I learned that my cousin was a bona fide writer. His name was Thomas F. Monteleone, and he lived in Baltimore, where I was growing up. And my mother was waiting to see if I was really serious about writing. And when I was about 20, she was like, "Hey, Bob, there's a writer in our family. You should go meet him." I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to go meet him." So I went to meet Tom. Tom, he wrote incredible novels like The Resurrectionist, The Blood of the Lamb. He's in the horror field, he's known as the godfather of horror. He's a fantastic guy, and he put up with me for many years. And I would go and he has a press called Borderlands Press, and I would hang out with him and watch how he did things, and he never minded, and I would write stories for him, and he would rip them to shreds. Like he was better than any English professor I ever had, because Tom would there was no mercy. None. So, and I will plug him. This was his first book, Borderlands, of being an editor. So his anthology, and it came out in the 90s, and it was the premier horror anthology. He didn't want any of the usual trappings of ghosts or goblins or vampires, for the most part, unless they were very well told or different. And I tried for years to get into that, years, and he would reject me all the time. No, but I appreciated the honesty. Yeah. I feel, and I'm sorry if this is a long-winded answer, I apologize.
No, this is good.
But I feel that we kind of have to grow into ourselves in every aspect. And I was growing into myself as a writer, even though I wanted to be published at 20. I wasn't ready. I hadn't lived long enough. I hadn't had the experiences I needed. Some people are lucky. Or skilled, or, I felt like I earned my skill day to day, writing out the bad stuff, and that's how you learn. You write and write and write and continue to write. And it's the solitary journey, and I know there are writers groups, but honestly, if you go to the writers group and don't write anything, you're not learning anything anyway, from my experience. So I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was about 21, and it took me a long time and I was always a writer. We're all, that's our gift. We can do that. We can express ourselves. We can change our world with writing. But I wanted to be a professional writer. I want to earn a living as a writer. That is my goal at this point. And I feel like it's my time. So I am with Matt Sinclair. He's fantastic. I know we'll probably go more into him, but he is a fantastic editor, the best that I've ever worked with, in all honesty. He's level-headed, he's logical, he can dissect mistakes. And I say mistakes in the sense of when it doesn't flow with the story. And not that he and I always agreed, but at the same time, he gave me the freedom. It wasn't, you have to do it my way. It was, let's find the best way. And so Matt, thank you. When you see this, and I hope you do, fantastic journey.
Very nice. I think that you are saying something that a lot of writers experience, and that's it's almost like an internal need to write, to build your own worlds, to say it in your own voice. And I really like that you said that. It resonates.
And I think part of it is, like, again, for this book, Roger Zelazny, and these letters, when I first started reading, I wanted to write like Roger Zelazny. He wrote a very famous book series called the Amber series. It's a fantasy science fiction hybrid. And when I read it, he pulled me in. It was like I read him and I knew I wanted. But I can't be Roger Zelazny. No one can be Roger Zelazny.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's a point, I think, and I don't know if I realized it or if the writing told me, but you just get to the point where you realize this is my work, my writing. And that's the threshold. And I'm sure you ladies know as well, having published, it's you get to that point where you find it, or it finds you. I don't know which is the case, but I know that happened to me several years ago, and you can't force it to happen. It just happens. It is the most powerful experience, even more than getting published. I think it's when you know that you're there.
For your first book, I mean, when did you write your very first book?
Well, the first book is hidden away down in the basement, never to be seen. If
we all have one of those.
Yeah, I think everybody does, right? I think even Matt mentioned it in the interview. I think he called them his trunk books.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. They're my basement books because no one wants to go down in the basement except for me. So I know it'll never be found. So maybe until I'm dead at that point, and my children might stumble on it. But this book was horrible, but it was the best book because I wrote it. Yes. But no one's ever going to see it.
Did you actually finish the book?
I did, but then I lost pages.
Oh.
So I have no idea. In moving, they disappeared somewhere, but I have about half. So that's fine. It's probably better left to the imagination what happened in the end, because it would probably be better than what was written at that point. But that said, The King of Ice Cream. So I had the opportunity. I'll give you the quick breakdown So I had the opportunity, and again back to Roger Zelazny. He passed unfortunately from cancer in I think it was 90. I'll be slaughtered if I don't remember this, but it was in the mid 90s. He passed from cancer. And as I mentioned, my cousin, Roger lived in Baltimore for a while, he knew my cousin. And my cousin, Tom Monteleone, who was kind enough on the back of my book to write a wonderful, wonderful notation about me, and I can't thank him enough. He knew Roger, and when Roger passed, authors were solicited to be a part of the Lord of the Fantastic, which was a tribute. Oh. And my cousin was like, "You love Roger, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's amazing." He's like, "Let's write the story together." So I got the opportunity to write the story, The Lord of the Fantastic, it was edited by a gentleman named Martin Greenberg, who I believe has passed, but he was an anthology god. He just, like, I think in the 90s, almost every anthology was put out by Martin Greenberg. Like, that's what he did. And I got to the point of being there, and then he had a press called 5 Star, if I'm recalling correctly. And again, it's been quite a few years. I talked to him, and he invited me to write a novel for 5 Star. I wrote The King of Ice Cream, which I love. The King of Ice Cream. It's reverted back to me because 5 Star Press has folded. I think that actually was a book that Matt was referring to in the interview, because that came back to me, and it's one of the 5 books that he and I are going to work together with. Right. I'm going to rewrite it there because it was funny, not haha funny, but I had good and bad reviews on it. The editing wasn't so good, so thank you, Matt, for having wonderful editing, please. So because every author makes their fair share of mistakes, and we don't see them. I'm sure you ladies have experienced the same
absolutely.
thing. You read it so much, right? Yes. And then my wife looks at it and she's like, "Well, you've done this. I'm like, "Okay, I didn't see it. I'm sorry."
That's right. Like, you can't see the forest for the trees at one
exactly.
point. Yeah.
You get to the point that you're blind to it. You just you scan over it. But that being said, I had someone on The King of Ice Cream, a reviewer, attack my biography. I'm so glad you hate me that much that you attacked my biography. Maybe I'm the first person that's ever had their biography attacked, but I just had to laugh. I'm just like,
right.
Right? Like, thank you, and sorry you hated the book that much, but at least you read the book, and it made you hate me at that point.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
Yeah.
That's why.
But what are you gonna do? At that point.
There are some strange reviews out there. So yeah.
There are. Yeah.
I'm glad I motivated him that much to respond.
You definitely inspired the action. You touched his emotions.
Apparently I did. Really? I'm sorry, and I don't want to do that again. So
no, that is what we all strive for, to keep our readers happy. Yes.
Or at least thinking. You don't have to agree or say it's the best book, but I think Neil Gaiman said it, and he would be the other author that has moved me, beyond, starting with reading Sandman comics in the 90s and watching him become, and he is actually, I've had the opportunity to meet him several times. He is probably one of the best people on the planet. Nicest person ever. may I go into a quick
Absolutely.
Neil?
Please do. Yeah, because we all love them.
So, for this, like Neil was also in this, and
Oh.
he came to a bookstore that I worked at, and I had the opportunity to be at a signing with him. We had the opportunity to talk, and he knew my cousin as well. My cousin knows everybody. Tom Monteleone knows everybody, but we had the opportunity to talk, and he signed the book, and then years later he was in a Boston. I think it was the science fiction. The big science fiction convention yearly. I stood in line to go meet him. This man has hordes of followers. Like he is just beloved, and he should be, because his writing is fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah.
I think I had it here, anything from American Gods to The Ocean at the End of the Lane, like everything he writes is,
yeah.
I don't think anyone's ever yelled at his biography.
You never know.
Well, you maybe. So Neil, if you ever watch this, just let me know if that's the case. But so I stood in line, and I had a few things for him to sign, and he looked up at me and he said, "You're Tom's cousin." And I'm like, "What? Like, you remember?" Like, he didn't remember my name, but he remembered who I was. And I'm like, that's amazing, for all the people that he meets, all the signings that he's done. Like, he genuinely just remembers and cares about.
Love it. Love it.
That is
That's fantastic.
So
Yeah, like,
wow.
Who would have thought, right? I mean, nothing against, but with all the people that he encountered, how would he have remembered that? That's amazing.
I think you must have made an impression on him as well.
I guess maybe a better impression than the other guy at this point. So that hated my biography, so.
You never know when you
speak.
speak.
Know you in person, like really good,
Exactly. And you never know what you're going to say to someone that makes that connection, like maybe you had a conversation with him about something that either sparked imagination or, something like that. So you never know.
It could have been. I hope so.
Yeah.
So that's my long-winded answer to that question. So.
No, that's a great story. I love it. Anything Neil Gaiman in this podcast is like golden. But so you go from in 2004.
Yes.
Your first published book, and then it takes you 20 years to get to the next one. So what happened in there? Like, were you taking a break from writing, or?
No. All right. I fully believe that. I think sometimes we have paths to choose.
Yep.
And I think, again, I think I was still growing into the writer that I needed to be, but I don't think I was ready. Call it, whether it was God saying you're not ready, or I was unconsciously saying I wasn't ready. I was writing short stories. I've had a few published in the meantime. Matt's had two, I think he'd mentioned, so again, I'll plug Matt. So we had Winter's Regret and Flight. And it was so wonderful to be a part of both of them. In Flight, I got to go to the signing, which that kind of reinvigorated me, actually. Signing, I think he had mentioned it. He was like, he has 70% female writers, but it was all guys that showed up at the signing. And it just brought that spark. It was a wintry day, drove to Jersey. So I live, Port Jervis is where Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York meet. I don't know if you ladies know. And it was also the end of the line railroad. So it's an interesting place. I've enjoyed my time here with my wife, but we drove into Jersey that night for the signing for Flight, and it was snowing, and we got there, but a gracious enough a number of people showed up, and just to read and sign again, that I was just like, yeah, like this is, I guess I'm so insular. I've never really had a writers group. I have friends that are writers that we've shared our works, but I don't have one that I go weekly to. My daughter, she was kind enough to write the foreword for the Game of Five, and she said it so well. And when you get the chance to read it, but she talked about coming down and seeing me at 1 a.m. on my old Dell typewriter writing, and I'm gonna throw it at my daughter. She's 16. She is a fantastic writer. She's far better than I was at her age. She's definitely at a collegiate level of writing right now.
Nice.
And I think even the small bit, the sample will show my daughter's talent at that point. I'm so proud of her.
Nice.
She's far better than I am. I had one friend that turned around and says, "Well, how does it feel that your daughter's outshining you at the start of the book?" I'm like, "It's fantastic. It's utterly fantastic."
Proud dad.
But going to that, and And I realized, though, I had short stories that I was writing, and I tried. Like, for instance, to answer your question, so in my writer's bio in Winter's Regret, it states, and I'll just read it real fast. At the end of it, his new novel, The Game of Five, is a contemporary novel of darkness with some hopeful light of redemption throughout, due in 2014. So I thought I had a deal ready to go for The Game of Five when I had first sold the short story to Matt. Obviously not, because it now came out in 2023 with Elephant. It's the way things happen. So sometimes, so rolling back to fate, sometimes I honestly feel like I was meant to meet Matt, and Matt has been a great guidance. He has elevated my writing with helping me see sort of, if my writing were a house, he's on the outside looking in, and he's pointing out things that I never looked at. So again, thank you, Matt. You are a wonderful editor and a fantastic writer. So
fantastic. And so what do you think that you did as a writer that was the most important thing to bring you to where you are right now? Like, what's the one most important thing that you did?
Say it in two parts. So for myself, I think I had to realize, one, that I had to, as we talked about earlier, I had to reach that threshold, and you don't know it until you reach it when you're writing your own work. So that was part 1A. Part 1B was, I realized that writing is, you're not just writing you are creating a journey, an emotional journey, for not only for people now, but this is the way we communicate. And Neil said this is the way we communicate with the dead. This is the way we communicate. And Stephen King, this is my telepathy throughout the ages. They're both right. These are important. I want to leave a tiny footnote. Apparently I brought up my own death like 4 times now, but it's, I just want to leave this. I want to leave it for my family, for myself, just to have that footnote in history. I think Robin Williams said it in, he was the private school teacher in the 50s or 60s. I can't
Isn't
remember.
it Good Will Hunting?
No, that was with Matt Damon.
Right. I don't remember.
And,
but it doesn't matter. What did he say?
It doesn't. I'm sorry, I'm stumbling now.
Oh, it's okay.
But he was like, what is your foot? He was a teacher of English students in the film. And he's like, what will be your footnote? What will you leave behind? And hi, this is Titus. It's my daughter's favorite cat, by the way. I just had to make his appearance. So I guess that was combined with, I really learned how I wanted to tell stories. And this is very important to me, at least. I learned that all of my short stories, all of my novels are a canvas for one large story, and they all interrelate. So the novels that I'm working on are all one tale, and what I've done, I think that's different than most authors. It's not book 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. When I'm finished, and Matt and I have published all of them, you can read any of the books in any order, and you'll just be getting the story differently, but they all interrelate with each other. I don't know how it's going to work, but I feel like it's the way that I need to tell the story. And even short stories that I've written and I'm writing now, there will be relations to this larger plot line.
I absolutely love that. Like, that's the kind of like series. It's not a series, but it is, and I love that kind of thing, because when you start reading, like, you feel at home, like you feel like these people, these characters, what they're going through. I love that. Even though it's a different story and everything is like, a little different, you still feel like this, and you feel comfortable there. And although horror, so you shouldn't feel too comfortable, but still, you know what I mean? Like, the characters, and the baseline of it, and it's nice. It's good,
and I'm not going to say just horror, because the one thing I learned from Roger Zelazny, he did something that no one had done before. He would take science fiction and fantasy, and he blurred the line. So for his fantasy, he would create elaborate magical systems. And for his science, he would blur over the science, and he sort of merged the two, and it worked really well for him, because he was a fantastic writer. I've learned that I can't write a fantasy series like Tolkien or Robert Jordan. It's not for me, but I love fantasy. Like I said, I love playing D&D. I love playing, I love going and seeing any of the fantasy movies that have come out, even the new Dungeons and Dragons movie with Chris Pine.
Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious. That was the first one that they did well for Dungeons and Dragons. But as an aside, so back to Roger, I just realized that I like to blur the lines. So the King of Ice Cream was a dark fantasy horror. The Game of Five is a thriller horror. I've written a novel which is sort of a dark fantasy. It's called The Lady of the Owl-Colored Eyes, which is probably the next one that Matt and I are going to do. It's a dark fantasy with fantasy elements. So it deals with old gods and what they do and how they relate to people. And the overall, and I feel like I'm a mad scientist right now, the overall theme of all of this is faith. It's faith in yourself, faith in God, faith in your family. Like this, the Game of Five there's a love story in it, but it's the love of a father for his family. It's not, I didn't want to do traditional boy chases girl or girl chases boy, because that's always done. Not that there aren't elements of that, but it was the Game of Five for me was, and I'll tell a quick story of how it evolved, if I may. My son was just probably 1.5, and he was just able to sit up in the tub. And so he was playing in the tub. It was a wintry night, and I was watching him, because it was babies fall over, so I was there watching him. And it's a small bathroom, and the fog was billowing up from the heat of the tub and the cold of the outside. And I was sitting there, and I was like, what's the thing that would scare me the most? And I thought about it, and I was like, what would happen if my son passed? Like that was the thing. I was like, just thinking about, you ladies said that you have children, it's the constant vigil of, always watching, giving space, but always watching as they grow up. I'm still having trouble letting go at 16 and 17, but that is an aside. And I thought about it, and the genesis of a father and a son, and danger to his son and danger to his family. And that was part of the genesis of the Game of Five, because it was real and visceral and people could relate to it. And it scared, and I'm like, if it scares me, it's going to scare other people, because this is a universal feeling, of protecting our children. That is a huge theme in the book, of the father's relation, Rowan, to his son Daniel. And I guess that was faith and family. And the idea of faith is very important to me. It always has. I grew up in a Methodist church, and I stepped away from the Methodist church, but I always believed in God. That was so important to me, and my relationship with God, and listening to, I think God speaks to us. And again, I don't want to, whether it's events in our lives or a still quiet voice, or I truly believe there's more to this reality than what we see. And that's the other thing. My writing, I like to offer, it's the view of a pond. And at the top, you're going to see something, and you have to push away the algae on the top, and you don't know how deep the pond's going to be. And that's what I like to write. So I find that there are layers and levels in what I'm writing and what I'm able to do, and this overall plot. And I'm hoping to draw people in so they dive in the pond with me.
Yeah, I actually like how you described that. That's very cool. It's very cool. It's good for your kinds of story, but actually for any kind of story, like you definitely want to, let them see what's a little deeper and
Absolutely.
dive right in. Yeah, it's fantastic. Before we have to go on to our next thing, I want to talk a little bit about your relationship with Matt Sinclair and small press, because I think small presses recently have gained in popularity. A lot of authors now are going for small press for a series of different reasons. But can you let us know a little bit how you met Matt and how you decided that small press was for you?
It was through the anthology Winter's Regret. I don't remember how I saw it, but I saw he was looking for stories, and I was like, I can do that. That was, and so I wrote a story, sent it in, and fortunately he liked it. And probably another year or so, or another story came out, Flight, and we talked, and he asked me, and I was like, yeah. I'm like, I'm not going to write about flying. I'm going to write about, it was the idea of Flight was any sort of flight, so I wrote about a flight of beer.
Nice.
So that was my take on it, and he seemed to like it, and the title was Psycho Sock, I believe that was the title of it. So it was weird. That's what I want, it works well for, and I'm only going to bring him up once, Stephen King. So we have to mention Stephen King once for horror. Works well for him. So you have to follow the master at that point.
Agreed.
I agree.
So, and then I don't remember exactly. It might have been after the signing that I spoke of earlier, and I was like, Matt, I've got novels. Are you interested in maybe publishing them? Because the idea of going with a small press, obviously, when I was a younger man, I wanted I'd love to have, the big royalty check coming to me and Random House, making the offer. But the world's changed so much. You don't need that. You don't need, and it's almost, you have to sell out to the company in that sense. Matt, you're not selling out to. I email him, I call him. He's always the one that picks up. That's the beauty of small press. It's the relationship that he and I have built and the trust that he and I have together, to create this. Again, he took, if I were to break out the first version of Game of Five, he elevated it, with working. It became something more.
Nice.
And I'm very thankful for that. It's a funny thing. I always look at writing as, it's like a block of stone and it's in there somewhere. And when you chip away the stone, I've always felt like my stories have already been told in my head, but they're laid out for me, but I've got to find them. And he's helped me sort of focus the chisel and hit in the right place. And it's, I highly recommend, dealing with him. If anyone's looking for, this experience, Matt is the person to go with,
Nice.
I mean, small press also, it was supposed to come out in April. So there are factors in life that, I mean, poor Matt suffered COVID. He had family in the hospital. It was a rough time for him. So I'm like, Matt, don't worry about the Game of Five. Concentrate on your family. So it came out on October 31st. That was kind of cool too.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, I think that was a perfect day, actually.
Yeah, we're off.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story about your writer's journey and your decisions along the way. I think
my pleasure.
Every young writer wants to, and I say young writer, but I still love hearing stories about how writers became the way that they are and what they write and everything. And so thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies, very much for the opportunity.
Oh, no.
It's great. It's funny because I read Roger Zelazny when I was a kid, and when you mentioned him, and I was like, oh, I remember the Amber series, and I loved the books back then. I remember, and now I want to read it again. So
I know.
I think you should
back into my life.
I read them probably every 6 years or so. I'll go through because I go back to the master. He was the master of the craft to me, and it's still a way to connect with the man that I never got to meet. I think Julia Cameron said this: as a writer, you have to be big and small at the same time. You have to be big enough to accept the fact of people will critique you and maybe not like what you write or like your biography, but you also have to be small enough to realize that we're always learning and always perfecting our craft and looking for the perfect word, the perfect sentence. You have to be both at the same time or have elements of both.
It's absolutely true. So we are going to move on to the next section, which is getting to know you a little bit better. So we've got 10 questions, and these are kind of speed round questions. So you can answer with one word, with a small sentence, with a short paragraph, any amount of length that you'd like to answer. And are you ready? I am ready. All right. The first one is, would you rather cook the dinner or bake the cake?
I know my family would rather me cook dinner. I cook. My wife is a fantastic cook. I've learned to be a pretty good cook from what you had said earlier.
Right?
I'm proud of myself. Baking, I'm terrible. So regardless of whether I wanted to bake the cake, my family would never let me bake the cake.
You're cooking dinner. That's okay. Do you listen to music as you write? I used to. Occasionally I do. I have Alexa again, so I have her throw on some songs, but I don't do it as much as I do. Do you have like specific songs for specific books, like a playlist or? No, ma'am. No, just I'll go to my old favorites. It might be U2 or Zeppelin or sometimes I even go to like old rap, like Public Enemy or. Oh wow! Okay. Yeah, it's mood driven sometimes, but it's just really what I'm feeling at the moment. So. Love it. Love it. Are you a night owl or an early bird? I'm both, because I still stay up till
midnight or 1 o'clock, whether it's writing or sometimes my son comes down and plays video games with me. But I also get up to take the kids to school, so I'm up at 5:30 with my wife at that point. So I'm not sure what sleep.
You're burning
I've
the
forgotten
candle. Yeah, both ends of the candle right there. Number 4 is, do you have a favorite sports team?
Yes, the Baltimore Ravens.
That's a good sports team. Very nice. My daughter went to school in Baltimore for college, and yeah, she totally fell in love with them. They're really good right now.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson is
fantastic,
becoming a fantastic quarterback.
Absolutely. Is the glass half full or half empty?
It depends on the day. My wife, I think she'd probably agree with this. I'm a pretty emotional person. So, whether it's depression or anger, this is a sign of someone that drinks deeply. I'd like to think I drink deeply of life. So sometimes the glass is half full or half empty. Just depends on the day.
Yeah, I think a lot of creatives are like that for sure. What's your favorite snack?
Chocolate chip cookies.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if we ever meet, all 3 of us are meeting in front of a big plate for sure.
Sometimes with a side of single malt scotch. So depending on how late it is during the day.
I'm there with you. That's all perfect. Yeah. Do you have a pet peeve?
No, not really. A lot of things in. So I won't narrow it down to just.
I know there's a lot of things, but like when you can't pin one down, it means like you don't really have one. It's just whatever. Do you have a favorite reading spot?
On the couch at night.
Nice, I like it. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that the Loch Ness monster exists?
This goes back to it being a matter of faith. I think we as people, we make things real in our own realities through our own belief system. So yep. I believe enough people believe in the Loch Ness monster that it exists on some level.
Yes, I really like that answer. I love it. And the last one, which is always, the most intellectual one, but right. Do you eat Oreo cookies as a 3-layer cookie, or do you lick the middle first?
3-layer cookie, but I will dunk it in milk.
Yes.
Thank you so much for answering those questions. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so Robert, can you tell us where people can find you on the internet?
Okay, so a good friend of mine is helping me build my website. I've been slow because I've been writing, so that's not in existence yet. But Facebook, Twitter, I'm there. Robert Wayne McCoy, or Twitter's Robert W. McCoy. I'd love to talk to people. Tell me what you think. Even if you hate my biography on this one, let me know. So I won't make the same mistake again. So please let me know at that point. But I'd love to interact with people. I really am excited to see what they have to say and what they get out of the work, and see how people see it differently. That I am very intrigued. So please contact me at that point.
And you said that your book came out on Thanksgiving, on Halloween.
Yes, ma'am.
And so it is available on all the platforms right now?
It's available on Amazon. Okay. So that's where Matt and I have agreed to have it. I think it helps with interactions with Amazon for a while if they're the only platform. So
perfect.
And also, you said that you're going to give away a book to one of the
Absolutely.
All right. So basically, everyone just check the description box below, and we'll have the link for the giveaway. Please just go down there, and you can sign up to win a copy of Mr. McCoy's book.
Oh, and one note of warning. So on Amazon, they messed up. There's another Robert McCoy that the biography is listed. So that is not me right now. I don't know when this will be aired, but hopefully it'll be taken care of by that time. But Amazon has a different Robert McCoy that loves hockey. So apparently my family said he's cooler than I am. I should have been him today, but I'm being myself. But please, that is not me. It'll be Robert Wayne McCoy.
Basically, if anyone has an issue with the bio, now is the time.
That's
I have actually I have an issue with the bio in Amazon because it's not me.
Bio issues.
Apparently my lot in life. That's my karma at this point to have.
Oh no!
Of all things, it's not the worst thing.
No,
it's not the worst thing. Yeah. So definitely, everyone, check out his book and join the giveaway if you can. And if you missed the giveaway dates, if you're watching this video a little bit later, still check out the description box. We'll have the link to Oh, the book 12. Okay.
That was awesome.
Okay. Which is fitting given Mr. McCoy is a horror author.
That's right.
It's very appropriate then.
So just check the chat box for all of his information. And so we just wanted to thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate the fact that you were willing to give your time to us and talk about your books and talk about all these authors that I personally love and had forgotten. I had forgotten they're series you read when you're a child that have an impact on you and you don't remember until you're older, and you're reintroduced to them. And that's how I feel today. And so I thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Angie, Christie, thank you both very much for the time and
our pleasure.
Really it was such an easy hour to get. You made our time with you very special. Yeah. And we really, we meet a lot of authors and, when I don't talk, that means that it's going well.
So true.
That's what I'm like, oh, I love what you're saying. I really love what you're saying. In my head, I'm like, and that's how I felt. You had a lot of good insights into writing and craft, the journey of becoming a writer that kind of resonated. So I really do appreciate the fact you were willing to share all that information with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
What are you working on right now?
Yes.
The 5th book of the series that I had mentioned, tentatively titled The 3 a.m. Man.
Okay.
And it actually goes back to some of the characters in this book. So the other books deal with other characters for the most part, but again they interact. But that's the one. I have about 50,000 words of that one right now.
Nice. That's a creepy title.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up, everyone.
Titus came back again.
Oh, he came for his debut. So we just want to thank everyone for joining us. If you enjoyed this video as much as we did, please give us a like. And if you want to watch more videos, just give push the subscribe button, and that way and the notification bell, that way you'll be notified when other videos come out. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's watching. Don't forget to join the giveaway. And thank you again to Mr. McCoy for joining us today.
Thank you, ladies. Much success to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. And to you too.
Absolutely, to you too.